Before Antonin Scalia's death, the Supreme Court heard arguments on a string of cases that are going to affect the future of public sector unions, the environment, immigration, voting rights. And without a fifth conservative vote, these cases could spell disaster for both Republicans and corporations if there's a tie. Joining me now to talk about these cases is Howard Nations. Howard, I saw a report the other day that somebody was suggesting, there was a lawyer from Nevada, I believe he was, suggesting that we ought to be able to allow for Scalia's vote from either heaven or hell, wherever he is, because we know how Scalia thinks. And my thought was, well, I bet I can guess where he is, but I don't know that we should have him voting after death in absentia. But the truth is, these votes matter right now. A 4-4 tie on the Supreme Court has a lot of different meanings. Lay this out for the viewers, if you would. What does it mean, and how does it affect significant cases?
Well, the legal effect of Justice Scalia's death, first of all, it strengthens the progressive wing of the Supreme Court. It strengthens lower court opinions. It weakens the Roberts courts in their effort to carry out the Republican political agenda. It weakens Justice Kennedy, who was the 5-4 swing vote. He's no longer a swing vote in a 4-4. But mostly it impacts important decisions that are currently pending in this term and possibly decisions going into the next term. Because if the Republicans get their way and block his appointment, the replacement, then this will be the first time in history that we've had 2 terms of the Supreme Court with an 8-man court. But at this point, the court can do a couple of things. With these cases that are pending, they can set them for re-argument. There have been important cases like Brown versus Board of Education in '54, Roe versus Wade in '73, Citizens United in 2010, that were all decided on re-argument. But they're blocked again on that because since this goes into the next term this October, there still won't be a replacement if the Republicans get their way. Then they can't just simply set it for re-argument next term because it'll still be an 8-person court. Now, the effect of a 4-4 decision is to it affirms the lower court automatically, and it does it without the Supreme Court giving any reasons for the decision, and it does it without it having precedential value. It cannot be cited as precedent as a Supreme Court opinion.
What opinions are affected right now? If you were to tell the viewers the things that are on your mind about what is mostly affected by this 4-4 tie, what would they be?
Well, you've got 6 cases pending. Most of them came from Texas. They go through Texas because they're looking for help from the Fifth Circuit, which is the most conservative court of appeals in the country. So they take them through Texas, through the Fifth Circuit, then to the Supreme Court. In the current term, the political implications that are affected by his death are very important union decision, voting rights, abortions, Obamacare, race-based college admissions, and immigration. To start with the anti-union, which is the Friedrichs versus California Teachers Association, the issue is whether non-members can be required to pay union dues. The goal of the Republicans is to break the unions. Cut a huge millions of dollars out of their income. The likely outcome of that is going to be a 4-4 split, which in this case will have the effect of upholding the mandatory payments, which makes a big difference to the Republican Party. That's a big difference in Scalia's death makes right there in that vote.
Let me interrupt you right there just a second. Now, let's play it out just a second. The GOP, they're not going to allow for an appointment. The other thing is, if the appointment isn't made in time, as you point out, you go into the next term, and a new judge coming in is not going to have a vote on a case that he's not heard, hasn't heard the argument, hasn't been involved with. Any judge that really understands how significant that is going to say, no, I'm not going to be involved with that. And I think there may be even some rules that say they can't be involved. So you're looking at this 4-4 tie anyway, for this term and the next term. So unions, what does it do if the tie doesn't go away?
Well, if the tie doesn't go away in the union case, it upholds the union's right to collect the fees from non-members.
Okay, now how about voting rights? How would you handle that?
Voting rights also is a Texas case, Ewenwell versus Abbott. It's a one-person, one-vote issue. The issue is whether you should count all residents or just eligible voters in creating your voting districts. The goal of the Republicans are to eliminate children, legal immigrants, and other urban residents to cut down the urban size of the impact where Democrats win votes. The effect of a 4-4 tie would be to uphold the practice of counting everyone, which again would be a big political loss for the Republicans.
Okay, now let's interrupt here this just a second, because you when we first started this discussion, you talked about how the Republicans saw the Fifth Circuit as the bounce to the Supreme Court, because the Fifth Circuit is what, Mississippi, Texas, Louisiana. So that circuit, they understand, is the most conservative circuit. So right. They've always used that circuit as the place to throw out these zingers that they know when Scalia was around. Scalia would be the person who says, yeah, I want to hear that case, or Clarence Thomas. They know that they have their people that were the go-to people. One of them is no longer with us, thank goodness. And so now we're left with this court that still is going to reach out for cases like this from the Fifth Circuit. So you feel right now the GOP loses on unions if this doesn't go away. They lose also on voting if this doesn't go away. Howard, we often, for some reason, corporate media, well, it doesn't surprise me, but corporate media has so little understanding about really the politics of this court that very often you'll hear them calling Kennedy a moderate, or that he's maybe even a liberal, because they're just so goofy. There's no other way for me to talk about. When I hear corporate media talk about how Kennedy is a possible moderate or or possibly even a progressive, it sends chills up my spine, because it shows you how little they know. What kind of case might Kennedy have an impact in?
Well, Kennedy could have an impact now very strongly, because whereas he used to be the swing vote, now if he votes with the conservatives, it's just simply a 4-4 vote. So no precedential value, it goes back, it upholds the lower court opinion. For him to have a true impact now, he needs to vote with the progressives, which makes it a 5-3 decision and gives him a lot of power. Again, makes him the swing vote.
But your call on him is probably the same as mine. The guy, he's anything but a moderate. He snuck in there as he snuck in as a moderate. Everybody knew when he was coming into that court that he was anything but a moderate. He's just a conservative hack. Do you see him voting with the progressives on anything that might mean a difference this time?
Well, I see him voting. There's one place that he might vote that would have a difference in this time, which is a very important vote, which is the immigration deportation case. There's a challenges. It's U.S. versus Texas. Challenges Obama's.
Texas again.
Yeah, Texas again. Well, what happened there is the Attorney General Abbott was doing all these, carrying the water for the Republican to get the Republican political agenda in front of the Supreme Court in order to win favor with everybody, and it worked because he's now Governor Abbott. Mm-hmm. So he brought all these cases. So now the challenge is the Obama plan to defer deportation of 4 million unauthorized immigrants. A 4-4 tie equals a loss for Obama. The lower court affirmed a nationwide injunction blocking the plan. Now, where Kennedy may make a difference here, Kennedy may join the progressives on this particular vote, and he may hold that Texas lacks direct and concrete injury needed for standing to sue. So that's one where there could be a big difference on the immigration issue, that Kennedy they make a big difference.
Okay, got about 30 seconds, Howard. Just tell me, I mean, I don't mince words about it. Scalia, I don't shed one tear, not one single tear for Scalia being gone. He did so much damage to the American public. Is that too harsh? What's your take on it?
No, it's not too harsh, because what this really demonstrates by these purely political cases that are part of the Republican agenda, that are just working their way up in the normal course of business because they've been brought by corporations and brought by Republican attorneys general around the country to be put in front of Scalia and Thomas and Roberts and Alito, and to get their vote so that the Roberts Court can fulfill the political agenda of the Republican Party. So these cases, just these 6 cases here, show how the Republican Roberts Court is in fact just the Republican wing of the Supreme Court.
I call them politicians. I call them right-wing political hacks with black robes. That's what the Roberts majority has been. And I got to tell you, I'm not even equivocal about it. I don't shed one tear for the loss of Scalia. I think it's a wonderful thing for this country not to have him around anymore. I know those words sound harsh, but I have followed this man's career since he was an appellate judge. He was scary then. He was scary up until the day he died with the rights of the people in this country. Howard Nations, thank you for joining me, okay?
My pleasure, Mike.